What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Michael Borky. Glad that you are here and checking me out and hanging out tonight. So we're doing another one take, this time talking about Ole Miss and quarterback. Spring practice has not been going on for very long, honestly, but I think this week was a rather interesting one. Some developments in the quarterback battle, or I guess lack thereof, so far with Ole Miss spring practice. So glad you're here. Please like the video if you like what you hear. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell as well, so you know when I go live for live streams, or you know when I post another one of these one take, which, as we learned last night, one take on one thing. And no editing, nothing, just like we're live on the radio every day. Giving this a shot again. We'll see if it goes as smoothly as it did last night. Everybody wants to talk about quarterbacks with Ole Miss. I've done 3 interviews this week, and that's all anybody really wanted to talk about was tell me about the quarterback battle. Tell me about Jackson Dart. Tell me about Spencer Sanders. Tell me about Walker Howard. Is he a wild card in this? Where are things going? And you've seen, or you may have seen, Greg McElroy say that he expects Spencer Sanders to be the quarterback. You may have seen Chris Lowe article in which, when he mentions Ole Miss, doesn't even mention the incumbent starter in Jackson Dart. Everybody's talking about quarterbacks with Ole Miss, and understandably so. Of course, the incumbent starter in Jackson Dart played well in spots last year. Obvious room for improvement, though. Spencer Sanders transfers in from Oklahoma State, was a multi-year starter there and played well when healthy. And then, of course, the LSU transfer, Walker Howard, with 4 years of eligibility remaining. It's a stacked and crowded and talented room, and everybody wants to know why Spencer Sanders is even at Ole Miss to begin with, if Jackson Dart was the returning starter. And so there's a lot of people wondering, and here's what I think I know right now when it comes to the quarterback position. And, you know, it's March 30th. So it's still very, very young in terms of an actual battle. But here's what I know. And it's nothing. Now, hold on. Don't turn this off yet. Don't click away. There's a very good reason why I don't know anything about the competition yet. Because, like I said in one of the interviews, it hadn't started yet. And here's what I mean by that. So let's rewind. Spencer Sanders, who, of course, as you know, transferred into Ole Miss, injured his shoulder during the season last year. If you listen to the radio show or have been on one of these live streams with me, you have heard me talk about and opine over the rumor that Spencer Sanders either wasn't 100% or re-aggravated that shoulder during the, I guess, winter, early spring workouts before practice began. It is either a gigantic ploy to throw everybody off the scent of what's going on, or we did get confirmation of that earlier this week when Lane Kiffin met with the media. He did confirm that Sanders himself also said as much, but Kiffin did confirm that Spencer Sanders was limited to some degree in practice and not going through full practices, not throwing the football. They're erring on the side of caution, and for the long term, in terms of the players' total health, they have had open practices for the media anyway. Fans will be able to see it for themselves this weekend, apparently. But in the portions that the media has been able to see, Spencer Sanders isn't throwing the football. He's not taking reps in live action with this football team right now. And so when that is the case, it raises some eyebrows, especially mine. So what does that mean if Jackson Dart and Walker Howard are taking at least the reps that people have been able to see, all of the live action reps, if Spencer Sanders is not participating in the team drills and not really throwing in practice? What does that mean? Does it mean that he's out of the job? Does it mean there's no chance that he can win it? Does it mean that Jackson Dart is the starting quarterback at Ole Miss and you can go ahead and write Sanders off and expect him to hit the transfer portal? It doesn't necessarily mean that. It is March, after all. Generally speaking, you shouldn't really take a whole lot out of spring practice. It's funny. Some schools do like spring MVPs and offensive player of the spring and defensive player of the spring. And it's so often guys that will never actually see the field. There's very few things that you can take away from spring games. It's just mostly going through the motions. Now, with this case in Ole Miss, it's a little bit different when you bring in a quarterback of Spencer Sanders' experience and profile as well. But this does mean, at least in my opinion, that he is getting fewer and fewer chances to actually win this job. If he's not participating in spring, that makes we're 5 months away from the season, but that does make it more difficult for him to win the job because, as you guys know, unseating an incumbent starter is an incredibly difficult thing to do anyway. It's really hard to do. Jackson Dart's been in the system for a year. He's been with the team for a year. He's won over the locker room. The guys know him. They're familiar with him. They respect him. And it's not like he played poorly last year as a 19-year-old in a brand new system and a team that he joined in February with or playing behind an offensive line that, despite the sack numbers, didn't do a very good job of protecting him, having no viable tight end. It was an issue last year. He had a lot of stuff and a lot of problems. And as a 19-year-old quarterback in a new system, being a full-time starter for the first time, he held up well. And so unseating that guy was going to be a difficult thing to do, even if he was healthy. But now that he's not even practicing, there are fewer and fewer opportunities for him to actually win that job. And does it mean he won't be able to? No. But when will he be healthy? That's another question. If you're months removed from that injury, when will you be 100%? When will that happen? Will it be in the summer? Will it be before the end of spring? Will it be by the fall? Who knows? But when there's only so many practices between now and the first game, it's hard to see somebody until things change. I reserve the right to change my mind on this, but it's hard for me to see a scenario in which you can do the difficult thing, which is be obviously better than an incumbent starter while not being able to practice. And so that is, at least to me, a very significant development when it comes to this. And for whatever it's worth, Jackson Dart himself was supremely confident in his media op this week that this was his team. He said he viewed himself as the starter and called the other two guys depth and said that they needed depth and he understands why they were signed. Seemed really confident and understandably so when he's taking all the first team reps and his competition is not even competing yet. So it really hasn't begun, at least in earnest. And those chances are getting slimmer and slimmer. So what's next in this is a brilliant question. By the way, don't sleep on Walker Howard. I've heard, and everybody seems to have heard great things about Walker Howard, and maybe even a little surprised at how quickly he was able to acclimate with the team and in the system. He's really impressing. He's a supremely talented kid, and apparently he is proving that. So what's next? You want the honest truth? I don't know, because we don't know when he's going to be healthy. Is it going to be by the spring game? Is he going to get a chance to start participating in live practice before the summer begins? When will he being Spencer Sanders, be healthy? Because you heard Kiffin say it, and you've heard other people say it, that Dart physically looks better. He looks more comfortable. He looks more confident. The team appears to really, really like him. Apparently has had a pretty good spring. At least that's what people say. So the question is, when will Spencer Sanders be healthy? Because if that still remains to be seen, if he can't get to 100%, then I think you know who the quarterback is going to be. But that can certainly change depending on health. I heard a really interesting question earlier, and we'll wrap up here. Is why Spencer Sanders? Because justifiably so, it was a totally fair question. It was completely rational to think that you don't bring in a multi-year starter with 1 year of eligibility left into your quarterback room when you have an incumbent starter, unless you don't believe in that incumbent starter, or you expect him to leave, or you don't think he's good enough, and you bring a guy like Sanders in because you expect him to start. And it's really that simple. That is totally rational and totally fair. I do think some people were possibly overthinking the Spencer Sanders signature. Maybe it's a lot more simple than that. It's very evident that Lane Kiffin views the current state of college football as a professional league, and you need to manage it that way. Players have freedom. They leave whenever they want. And so why wouldn't you treat them that way? His job, his $9 million a year job, is to make every position group on the field as good as possible. And so with Spencer Sanders being very available, as I understand it, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But as I understand it, his options were pretty limited in terms of where he could have gone, at least at this level. So he was available, and he can either come in and win the job, which means your most important position on the field got better, or he comes in and pushes your incumbent starter, which it sounds like that has happened, and you get better at the most important position on the field. Maybe it's as simple as he was available. They needed the depth. Again, he was the best of it. Not only was he available, he was the best available. They kicked the tires on other guys. Mike Wright, for example, from Vanderbilt, took a visit, possibly talked to him about maybe switching positions. But it's not like Spencer Sanders was the only quarterback that they looked at. They needed to bring guys in. They needed depth. You can't go through a spring and a fall with only 2 scholarship quarterbacks on roster if you can help it. So they needed the depth. This is the new norm in college football, and Lane Kiffin treats it very much like a professional organization. People have talked, and I've heard myself, that they don't really expect all 3 of their quarterbacks to be on campus when the season begins. Will that actually happen? I have no idea myself, but people are speculating about that. But why Spencer Sanders? Maybe it was that simple. Maybe he didn't have as many options as you would think that a guy of his caliber would have. Maybe there was some things behind the scenes limiting his options. There were some things behind the scenes that were possibly limiting his options. He didn't have very many, and he was available, and Lane Kiffin's kind of a mercenary. Maybe it is really that simple, because I don't think that anybody was promised a job. When they say that, I believe it completely. I don't think Spencer Sanders was brought in and promised to be the starting quarterback. Maybe he was told that he would have a chance to compete, and you know how things go in recruiting. Sometimes promises are made, but I don't believe, could be wrong, I don't believe that he chose Ole Miss because he was told, if you come here, you are going to be the starting quarterback at Ole Miss, guaranteed. I don't know if exactly it went down like that. I could be wrong. But either way, with how it's currently playing out, a competition hasn't begun yet. And so until it does, it sounds like Jackson Dart's in command. He certainly feels, or it feels like he believes he's in command anyway, with his statements and his confidence. And for what it's worth, his coach told him, or told the media, that he was one of the most improved players on the team. So that's what I've got right now. That's kind of where I think things stand. It's probably just as simple as you got to make your quarterback room better, because it wasn't good enough last year. Either Dart gets pushed or Sanders wins the job, and either way, you got better at quarterback. But the injury thing and the questions around that, how long is it going to last? When will he be 100%? Will he ever be 100%? Is now the biggest question with, at least offensively, Ole Miss through this spring and into the summer. Because if you're asking who's winning the job right now, there's only one answer, and we'll see if it stays that way. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope all of that made sense, and I'll see you guys on the next one.